为什么现在男生变得越来越抠门了？
Why are some men becoming increasingly stingy and reluctant to spend money on women? This phenomenon seems to be growing more common. Initially, most men, when pursuing the women they admire, are willing to spend money as a way to express their sincerity and affection through tangible actions. However, in reality, not all women can understand and appreciate the efforts men make. Some women even take a man's spending for granted without ever genuinely cherishing his efforts. Worse still, some women display an attitude of the more he spends, the more he loves me, but in truth, this is not the case. Many men's experiences tell them that spending money does not necessarily win a woman's heart. Sometimes, even after making considerable financial contributions, they find themselves feeling disappointed and hurt because the results don't meet their expectations. For example, some men may spend 300 yuan on dinner, a movie, and even giving out red envelopes, only to face complaints from the woman. Some women complain about the food not tasting good, the movie being boring, or the red envelope amount being too small, even showing dissatisfaction about these matters. This makes the men feel wronged because their original intention was to make the woman happy, but instead, they received no gratitude or understanding in return. In fact, if the man spent this 300 yuan on himself, he could cover a few months of phone bills, enjoy a nice meal, watch a movie he likes, or buy something he truly wants, which might bring him more happiness. More importantly, even if the money isn't spent on a woman, it can still bring him greater satisfaction. Therefore, men are not becoming stingy, but after repeated experiences, they have come to understand that spending money does not always lead to understanding and reciprocation. Instead, it often puts them in a situation where their efforts go unappreciated. After experiencing disappointment time and again, they become more rational and choose to spend money on themselves, pursuing their own happiness and satisfaction. After all, spending money to make oneself happy is a rational and healthy choice.
现在有一些女人呢，你是不是纠结啊？为啥男人不愿意给你花钱了？
Nowadays, many women might be confused as to why most men are no longer willing to spend money on them, or even unwilling to pay a large bride price. The answer is simple. It might be because you are not worthy of them spending money on you. Men are not fools. Their money doesn't fall from the sky. Why should they use their hard-earned money to spend on you? Is it just because you've listened to some toxic motivational courses from relationship gurus, or because you always demand but never give? Or is it because you are not willing to contribute at all, or because you lack basic economic independence and only earn around 3,000 yuan a month? Men are actually very rational. They wouldn't spend money on low-quality, overpriced items. Marriage is no different. A man is willing to invest in someone he deems worthy. If you are very successful, economically independent, and can afford luxury brands like LV, would the men who pursue you buy you cheap knockoffs? Obviously not. And if you come from a prominent family with a strong background, with a dowry that includes high-end cars like a Benz or a Land Rover, how could those men even think of offering a bride price of just 100,000 yuan? So, marriage and love are also like a smart transaction, where both parties evaluate each other based on their respective conditions. If you see yourself only as a breeding machine, a queen who knows how to enjoy but not give, or as a leader who commands men without offering anything in return, then don't expect men to spend so much on you. From their perspective, you aren't worth it. Do you understand?
就是现在的男孩子为什么都不愿意给女生花钱呢？
Hello everyone. Many of my female friends have asked me why nowadays, more and more men are unwilling to spend money on women. Is it because they really don't have money? Let's think about it for a moment. Among our single male friends, some like fishing, and a single high-end fishing rod can easily cost 1 or 2,000 yuan, which is still considered relatively cheap. If a man enjoys riding motorcycles, he might spend a lot of money on customizing his vehicle, such as applying window tints, changing wheels, and upgrading the exhaust system. Just these accessories and modifications can easily cost several thousand yuan. For those who like hiking and camping, a complete set of outdoor gear can also be quite expensive, with prices commonly reaching several thousand yuan, or even tens of thousands of yuan. From these examples, it's clear that men aren't lacking purchasing power, nor are they financially incapable of buying things like your lipsticks or cosmetics. Instead, their spending choices have new priorities. Many men believe that spending money on hobbies or things that bring them direct satisfaction and value is more worthwhile. When it comes to spending money on women, they start to think about what kind of return they will get from spending this money. Many men today lack confidence in love, and some even have little hope for love itself. In comparison, spending money on themselves or enjoying relaxing activities like massages or hot springs at least provides a certain level of emotional value and satisfaction. On the other hand, many women don't provide any emotional value to men. Some women, after only 2 dates with a man, immediately ask for expensive gifts, such as an iPhone 16, high-end cosmetics, or a luxury brand handbag. Of course, men feel that these demands don't offer much in return. It's not that men don't have money. Rather, they believe that spending money on women doesn't necessarily result in an equivalent return or emotional investment. This leads to many men being unwilling to spend money on women. Therefore, if women want men to spend more money on them, they need to offer corresponding value. This value can be emotional resonance, spiritual support, or other things that make the other person feel that the investment is worth it. Only when you can provide him with more value will he be willing to spend more on you. This is the model for a healthy relationship.
见过抠的，没见过这么抠门的男人。
I've met some stingy men before, but I've never met one as stingy as this guy. The man I met today really almost drove me crazy. Guys, it's one thing if you're emotionally inexperienced, bad at speaking, or even a bit of a typical straightforward man, but some older guys can be extremely stingy to the point of being outrageous. He's unwilling to contribute even the smallest amount, feeling like it's not worth it and being too reluctant to spend money. After hearing about the blind date experience I arranged for these 2 people today, you'll understand why some people are still single. This afternoon, I arranged a blind date. The man is 35 years old, and the woman is 31. Before the meeting, both sides thought their conditions and photos were pretty good, so they agreed to meet at a shopping mall in the afternoon. After meeting, they both had a good first impression of each other, so they decided to stroll around together. They walked around from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. During the walk, the woman felt a bit thirsty and said, "I'm a bit thirsty. I'd like a cup of milk tea." The man replied, "You go ahead, I'm not thirsty." So the woman went ahead and ordered a cup of milk tea and continued walking. When it was almost dinner time, the woman suggested, "It's already dinner time. How about we have a meal before heading back?" At that point, the man pulled out his phone, opened a group buying website, and selected the cheapest 2-person spicy hot pot set available through a group deal. The woman was probably feeling a bit helpless inside, and sure enough, not long after, during dinner, she made an excuse and walked out. After leaving the restaurant, she immediately sent me a message, angrily complaining that the man I had introduced her to was really awful. She said that this man was extremely stingy, unwilling to buy even a cup of milk tea, and when it came to dinner, he chose the cheapest group buying deal for a spicy hot pot. I didn't know what to do, so I immediately called the man and explained the situation as gently as possible. But to my surprise, the man actually said, "If this woman doesn't want to continue talking to me, that's fine. But we ordered the double portion of spicy hot pot, and she ate her half, so she must pay her share. Why should I pay for it all by myself? Of course, it has to be split evenly." When I heard this, I was about to lose it. Eventually, I ended up transferring the woman's half of the meal cost to the man, and he immediately accepted the payment. I really have no words. The cost of this blind date was not high at all, and this man is still so stingy. What do you think of this man's behavior? Is he just stingy, or is there some other issue?
现在的男孩子都比较抠门了，然后有时候一杯奶茶呀那些比较舍不得吧。
I really feel that nowadays, some young men can be quite stingy. Some of them are even unwilling to buy someone a cup of milk tea. You can sense that they are very cautious about spending money, and sometimes if they order takeout for you, they expect you to return the favor by buying them takeout. This kind of behavior is something I really can't accept, especially when the person has a good financial condition but still nitpicks over such trivial matters. I care more about a person's attitude, because the way they handle every little detail in life reflects their character. As for men who already have children, I really can't accept that. I don't want to be a stepmother, because if I marry someone like that, his child will likely take up most of his time and energy, and I, as his wife, would easily be ignored. Although I know that many people can manage these relationships well, I don't think I can. I would prefer to meet a man who doesn't have too many family burdens. After all, we need to build our own life together. When it comes to dating and arranged marriage, I can accept splitting the cost, AA system. This way, There will be no disputes between both parties. I really dislike those situations where I have a meal bought by the other person, and if the arranged meeting doesn't work out, that man will later complain that he paid for the meal and expect me to reimburse him. I'm not interested in men like that. I hope both parties can be generous, not petty. As for the traditional man works outside, woman stays at home approach to marriage, I completely cannot accept that. Especially as a woman, I believe that women must have some financial independence. I don't want to constantly rely on a man for money. It's hard to endure a life like that. However, when it comes to the financial expenses of a marriage, I think the bulk of the economic burden should fall on the man, since men usually earn more than women. But the woman also needs to have some financial capability. She doesn't need to earn as much as the man, but she should at least contribute to the family. Especially after having children, the woman usually takes on more household and childcare responsibilities, which can be more burdensome than the man's responsibilities. Regarding relationships, if I meet someone I like, I may be quite passive. I would try to give some hints, like inviting the person to have a meal together. But if he rejects me, I won't be proactive anymore. After all, I am quite passive and feel that if I keep pursuing someone as a woman, it might seem awkward and give the impression of being clingy. So even if I like someone, I wouldn't actively chase after him.
为什么现在的男人看起来好像都挺小气的？
Nowadays, it seems that many people believe modern men are a bit stingy. But why must men be particularly generous? In fact, this very idea carries a certain bias. When we talk about the word miser, it's usually used to describe men and rarely women. However, if you observe carefully, many women are quite willing to spend money. Even if they are reluctant to spend on themselves, they are often very generous when it comes to their children. This is a common phenomenon. In fact, they are not stingy with household expenses either. On the other hand, men sometimes appear particularly stingy, but there are often considerations behind this behavior. So, why are they stingy? Recently, a word has been trending, simp. You see, in the realm of relationships, young men from the 60s, 70s, and 80s often pursued women in this way, essentially as simps. Back then, men were bold in showing themselves, often quite daring and thick-skinned. They would follow you around, pick you up from work, and do all kinds of things to demonstrate their sincerity and showcase their affection. This approach often succeeded in moving women. However, when it comes to relationships today, can men born in the 90s and aughts still employ the simp method? It's actually no longer effective. This has become a kind of cheap effort. Nowadays, women care more about the value you bring to them, not just how much you give. Even if you dedicate yourself every day, if it doesn't bring them real value, they won't be interested. In recent years, especially in relationships, women tend to play certain games, such as hot and cold tactics or maintaining a high-cool attitude to make the other person feel uncertain. This, in turn, piques their interest. This strategy seems to have become a social trend. Of course, some women still appear genuine and are not influenced by these games. But overall, men being stingy seems to be a broad trend, one that may become even more common in the future. Men's stinginess actually has its reasons. In some ways, they've learned certain strategies from women. For instance, in dating, it has traditionally been the norm for men to foot the bill, and rarely does anyone expect women to pay. At most, when women actively cover part of the expense, it's usually splitting the cost 50-50, which is already considered remarkable. As a result, many men start to question, why should I treat you to a meal? Why should I spend money on dates? If they feel the other person isn't interested, they may think spending money is pointless and might as well appear a bit stingy. Instead of ordering 10 dishes, they may only opt for 2 simple dishes and a bowl of soup. In such cases, if a woman is willing to continue dating this man despite his stinginess, what should she do? She could choose to be stingy too, or she could accept his way of doing things. Of course, the best approach is for women to take the initiative and show some generosity. For example, why can't women treat men to a meal? If you treat him to a 200 yuan meal, it's not a big deal and you can see how he responds. If he follows suit and treats you to a more expensive meal next time, it shows he knows how to balance giving and receiving. If you treat him to a 200 yuan meal and he doesn't reciprocate or treats you to something cheaper next time, or even disappears altogether, you've only lost a bit of money, and it was just an experiment. Most importantly, women should also take the initiative to seek change and influence the other person's behavior. It's not fair to always criticize men for being stingy. Among stingy men, there are also those worth dating. They have their own strengths and unique traits. As long as you're willing to try and adapt, you might gain a different outcome. After all, a stingy man isn't necessarily incapable of being a good partner.
Recently, many of my female friends have told me that they feel today's men are particularly stingy when it comes to relationships. They feel that they can't find true love anymore. Actually, I believe that many men nowadays simply don't like to involve too much money in their romantic relationships. This isn't necessarily because the overall economic environment is bad, although that factor does exist. But no matter how beautiful you are or how much a man is fond of you, once money comes into the picture, especially when the woman asks the man to spend money on her, many men will pull away immediately, regardless of whether or not they have money. There are many reasons behind this phenomenon. Firstly, modern dating culture has created a somewhat adversarial dynamic between men and women. Many women believe that if a man is unwilling to spend money on them, it means he doesn't value them enough, and they even think the man is avoiding responsibility. So, nowadays, many women try all kinds of ways to get men to spend money on them. On the other hand, men also feel that women often seem to have a money-grabbing mentality, hoping to gain financial benefits through a romantic relationship. This mindset has gradually made relationships between the sexes more complicated, and many men are growing weary of such a transactional approach to dating. In reality, no one wants to feel controlled or exploited. Whether or not a man has money is not the key point. What matters is that many women, when dating, tend to use money as a measure of love. It might be fine a couple of times, but over time, the man will feel that this approach is exhausting and even begin to resist the relationship. If you truly want to experience a pure relationship, it's best not to frequently bring up money issues. Dating should be based on emotions, not material exchange. As your relationship deepens, the man will naturally want to spend money on you for important holidays or special occasions. But this spending will come from his heart, not out of external pressure. However, if your initial intention is to get money through the relationship, then it can't really be called dating. After all, this mindset is completely different from true love. The most important thing is that it is truly hard to find someone who genuinely cares for you and is worth entrusting your future to. Whether male or female, we should cherish those who are truly willing to make sacrifices for us. If you find a good partner, don't let go easily, because it's rare to encounter someone who genuinely loves you. If you share similar views, feel free to share your thoughts and experiences in the comment section so we can discuss this issue together. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Your support is extremely important to us, and we will continue to bring you better content. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.